Hello there, Celtic supporters. From every corner of Scotland and far beyond, there's a real buzz in the air just now, the sort of feeling that sweeps through the support when something big is brewing. You can sense it in every pub chat, every group message, every late-night scroll through social media. Folk are arguing, dreaming, panicking a wee bit, and hoping for the best all at once. And at the heart of all that noise sits one name that hardly any of us had heard much about just a few weeks back, but who has suddenly become the center of every conversation. Wilfried Nancy, a man coming from across the Atlantic, but carrying with him a story that has made even the most skeptical Celtic fans pause for a moment and think, maybe, just maybe, there's something special here. To understand why so many people in the United States speak about him with such admiration, you need to know the backdrop he walked into. Columbus Crew aren't just another MLS side. They're a club that nearly vanished from the city they called home. Imagine for a moment waking up to learn that your club, the club you've supported all your life, could be uprooted overnight because some owner decided the numbers didn't suit him. That's what happened over there. A hidden clause in the contract allowed the previous owner to move the team if the metrics weren't to his liking. And when word finally leaked out, the city was thrown into absolute shock. People were devastated, angry, confused, the whole lot. And before anyone had time to breathe, the plan to move the club to Austin was already in motion. But that was the spark that lit Save the Crew, one of the wildest supporter movements you'll ever hear about. What started with a few worried fans quickly grew into something massive, something powerful, something that pulled an entire city into the fight. Folk were printing yard signs, plastering posters in shop windows, holding meetings with city officials, talking to state representatives, and taking things all the way into courtrooms. Fans from every corner of Major League Soccer joined in. Even rival supporters were marching beside them. It turned into a full-scale battle, not just for a football club, but for identity, for community, for something they believed was theirs. And somehow, against all the odds, they won. New owners stepped in, the club stayed put, and Columbus Crew got a fresh start, not just a new stadium, not just a new structure, but a chance to rebuild everything from the ground up. And this right here is where Wilfried Nancy enters the picture. By the time he arrived, the club had hope again, but hope alone doesn't win you matches. What he brought wasn't just tactics on a tactics board. He brought a belief system, a philosophy, a way of treating people that hit differently for everyone around him. Nancy's whole approach to football is built on connection. He's not the type who stands there pretending the sport is some cold, mechanical thing. He sees players as people first, and he sees relationships between teammates, between staff, between supporters, as the beating heart of winning football. The thing is, that sounds lovely in theory, but over there, it wasn't just talk. It translated straight into performances, into growth, into players turning into far better versions of themselves than anyone expected. When Columbus Crew won MLS Cup in 2023, the first thing he said on the pitch was, "Impossible is an opinion." It became his calling card. And in the United States, people genuinely believed he meant every word of it. It wasn't him putting on a show for the cameras. It wasn't motivational fluff. It was simply the way the man sees the world. You tell him something can't be done, and he'll nod politely, then go away and figure out how to do it anyway. That's the mentality he instilled in his squad. The fans felt it. The city felt it. And you can start to see why Columbus supporters speak of him the way they do. What makes all of this even more interesting for Celtic fans is the way he developed players nobody expected to become anything special. He took lads from reserve teams, lads who hadn't kicked on at their previous clubs, and suddenly they were international players. He pulled full-backs into midfielders into defensive roles, and somehow they all thrived. He improved footballers in a league where the level jumps all over the place and where no one stays dominant for long. In fact, the MLS is built around parity. It's hard to stay at the top. It's hard to be consistently better than everyone else. And yet, under Nancy, Columbus reached 4 finals in 3 seasons. For a league like that, it's practically unheard of. What strikes most people when they hear him speak isn't arrogance or swagger. It's conviction, proper conviction. When he was asked in an interview how he'd feel facing a team like Real Madrid at a Club World Cup, he said straight-faced that his side wouldn't be underdogs. Everyone knows they would have been. Even the players would know. But that isn't the point. It's the mindset he wants around him. He wants players who don't shrink. He wants a dressing room that isn't afraid of the moment. And he wants supporters who believe their club can stretch beyond whatever limits people try to put on them. And maybe that's exactly why there's a bit of a split in the Celtic support right now, because folk here aren't sure what to make of someone who comes from MLS. They don't know the league well enough to judge it, and they don't trust names they've never heard of. It happened before with Ange Postecoglou. Folk said he was a gamble, said he wouldn't cope, said it'd all fall apart. And then he built one of the most entertaining Celtic sides in years. So when some supporters look at Wilfried Nancy and feel uncertain, it's not that they think he's useless, it's simply that they're stepping into unknown territory again, and unknown territory always brings nerves. But for the people in Columbus, for the ones who watched every minute of his work, he's not an unknown at all. He's the man who arrived during a strange, fragile moment in their history and gave their club an identity again. He's the man who helped players fall back in love with the sport. He's the man who helped the city believe in itself in a way football sometimes uniquely allows. And now, with Celtic sitting in a tough spot, with injuries piling up, frustrations rising, and the pressure as fierce as it ever is in Glasgow, maybe this is exactly the sort of leader who thrives in chaos rather than crumbles under it. He's stepping into a club where the expectation is relentless, where every draw is a crisis, where every press conference becomes a headline. But he's also stepping into a place where, if you get it right, the connection with the supporters is unlike anything else in world football, and maybe, just maybe, the same qualities that helped him steer Columbus' crew through their storm are the same qualities that could help him handle the madness that comes with leading Celtic. As the hours moved on and the buzz around the squad kept growing, you could feel a shift in the way supporters were talking about the team, almost as if a new wave of belief was washing over the terraces. Folk who had spent the last few seasons feeling a bit cautious were suddenly pulling out old scarves, chatting about past glories and wondering if this could be the start of something genuinely special. Inside the training ground, the energy was completely different from the earlier months, with players pushing each other through every session as if every run, every touch, and every decision mattered far more than before. When you watched them move with that sense of purpose, it was clear that the coaching staff had managed to unlock something that had been sleeping, something that needed the right mixture of confidence, structure, and personality to shine again. Even the younger lads were starting to look bolder, stepping into drills with seasoned players and showing no fear when it came to proving that they deserved a spot when the manager called their name. Every time conversations turned to the big fixtures ahead, there was a feeling that this side was no longer stepping onto the pitch simply to survive, but to impose their style and set the tone from the first minute. You could sense it in the way defenders communicated, louder and more assertive, and in the way the midfield moved the ball with a bit more swagger, looking up quickly and spotting gaps that earlier they would have played safe. The attacking players especially seemed to be in a different mindset, no longer waiting for the match to settle, but taking on challenges from the opening whistle, always searching for spaces behind the rival's backline. It was the kind of shift that comes not from luck, but from hard work, repetition, and a growing understanding that each part of the squad had a real role to play. And when supporters see that, when they see effort matched with ambition, the stadium noise naturally begins to rise, becoming that extra lift that players feel in their chest. There were a few moments in training when the coaches paused everything just to highlight how much sharper the side had become. A simple diagonal pass that was once mistimed now arrived perfectly on the forward stride. A defensive line that had struggled to stay compact suddenly shifted as one, sliding left and right like they were connected by an invisible rope. These things do not happen by accident. They come from countless hours of work behind the scenes, the kind that the cameras rarely capture, the kind that only the squad and staff truly appreciate. It was this unseen grind that had brought them closer together, giving them the confidence to attempt patterns of play that required trust, quick reactions, and bravery to execute. And once those patterns clicked, the whole team began to move with a rhythm that left rivals constantly trying to catch up. Inside the dressing room before matches, there was no longer that hesitation that had crept in during previous seasons. Instead, there were determined looks, soft conversations between players aligning their responsibilities, and a palpable sense of unity. Not the kind of empty unity you talk about in interviews, but the real sort that is forged during late nights, tough mornings, and honest meetings where players call each other out because they know they are capable of more. When you have that kind of collective understanding, stepping onto the pitch becomes less about pressure and more about opportunity. The chants from the stands start to feel like fuel, and the roar that accompanies every strong challenge or attacking movement seems to echo longer and louder, building a connection that is difficult for any visiting side to break. The local supporters, the ones who follow the club through cold midweek matches and long trips, were particularly excited about how the squad was adapting to different match situations. They had watched the side crumble too easily in previous years when the tempo rose or when things became chaotic. Now, though, this team seemed almost comfortable in chaos, able to adjust with calm heads and decisive actions. If rivals tried pressing high, the defenders played out with confidence. If the match demanded a more physical approach, the midfield rose to the challenge and battled for every loose ball. And if the game required patience, the attack slowed things down before striking at the perfect moment. That versatility is rare, and when supporters see it forming in front of them, they cannot help but believe that something potent is building. What made this phase even more compelling was the hunger shown by players who were not regular starters. Every time they stepped onto the pitch, whether for a handful of minutes or for an entire half, they made sure to influence the match. Some provided crucial interceptions, others delivered clever passes, and a few even managed to score in moments when the team desperately needed a spark. The coaching staff took note, understanding that the depth of the squad might be the key difference in the long run. A season is long, full of unexpected injuries, sudden suspensions, and moments when form dips, and only teams with a strong bench survive the toughest stretches. Watching these players seize their chances gave the entire squad a boost, showing that everyone was fighting for the same objective. Each interview with players after matches revealed the same sentiment. They were beginning to trust the system completely. They spoke openly about how every training session had been designed to make them think quicker, move smarter, and react to pressure without losing composure. You could see that this collective understanding was helping them break down stubborn defensive blocks that earlier would have frustrated them. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. A ripple of pure shock has swept across European fit-bar circles this morning as word drifts through the grapevine that Seamus Coleman has personally agreed to take a wage cut in order to seal a move to Celtic. You read that right. No some inflated transfer rumour from abroad, but a proper boots-on-the-ground whisper echoing round Glasgow pubs, training grounds, and every WhatsApp group that claims they ken someone who kens someone inside Lennoxtown. Folk close tay. The matter are hinting that Coleman, long admired for his graft, leadership, and no-nonsense style, has grown increasingly drawn to the idea of finishing his career at a club where the stands thrum with history and expectation. They say he's captivated by the pull of a support that roars like few others in Europe and by a dressing room that could use a steady hand with his mix of grit and experience. And if these murmurs are true, the man's even willing to trim his own wage demands, something rarely heard in the modern game, especially from a player who could still command a tidy packet elsewhere. Celtic fans naturally are split between cautious optimism and unfiltered excitement. Some insist it's just smoke and chatter, the kind of rumor that always pops up when a seasoned name becomes available. Others are already picturing him tightening up the right flank and barking orders like he's been wearing the hoops for years. Inside Parkhead, though, the shutters remain firmly down. Nay confirmations, nay denials, just that eerie silence that tends to fuel speculation rather than kill it. And across Europe, rival scouts are allegedly scratching their hides, wondering how Celtic might be pulling off a move that seemed unthinkable not long ago. Whether this proves to be a flash in the pan or the start of something seismic, the rumor has already taken on a life of its own. For now, all folk can day is whisper, argue, refresh their phones, and wait for the next tremor. Coleman's name is in the wind and in Glasgow. That's usually how storms begin. Hello, fan. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.